So what do we then find? What's that? What number should we focus on next?
6x.
The 6x. So we like the 6x because we need to look at which number in there. The 6. Well, should we move anything first? What do we want to do first? Add 11. I like that idea. So we have x squared plus 6x equals 11. And that golden rule of algebra says that what we do to one side, we need to do to the other. So we're going to add the same thing to both sides. Theoretically, we could add anything we want to both sides, but we want to add something that turns it into a nice square on the left. And we know how to do that because we're going to divide the b value, the coefficient of x, by what? 2. We're going to divide that by 2 and square it. So what's 6 divided by 2? 3 squared is? So if we add 9 to both sides, is it still a true statement if we add 9 to both sides?
Yeah.
And this is really nice because what does that turn into? X plus 3 squared equals 20. If we want to get rid of a square, we need to do what to both sides? And we have to be careful about this because when we take a square root, what do we have to put out front? What goes right here?
Plus minus. Right?
Plus minus, right, exactly. When you take a square root, you have to make it plus or minus because you are looking for both of them, not just the principal. If the square root is already there, it's already there. You don't have two cases. Now what do we subtract from both sides?
3.
So x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 20. Relatively straightforward because it's set up rather nicely. It's set up rather nicely. What's the only difference in difficulty with 2 here? What's the only difference? It's got a 2, so what do you have to do first? What do you have to do first on this one? What's the only difference in difficulty between 2 and 3? What does this one add in? 5 is when you... Okay, you add the 5, but then when you divide by 2, what do you end up with? A fraction. So there's no fractions in this one. There's no fraction in this one because they're even numbers. But then you're going to divide by 2 and have a fraction there. Is that going to? Does that change the math itself? No. I know you get a little sad on the inside for some reason, but you shouldn't. It's the same math. This one's kind of nice, right? It's going to add something in. So why don't you just jump to? You know what? Just keep on working on these for now. Keep on working on them. Do whatever one you want to do. If you feel as though you want to jump to a harder one, jump to 3. If you want to jump to a weirder one, jump to 4. You look confused.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how to happen. No, 4.
You're not using the quadratic formula.
X plus 4 squared.
No.
I'm just going to put negative 5 plus 16. Did you add 5 before you did everything? For the next one, instead of saying like to shoot. Should I divide 2 first or should I divide first?
you have any new answers, make sure you verify them with someone around you just to see if you either agree or disagree.
Yeah, mine is kind of really weird.
Are weird answers okay on these?
They are okay.
Yeah, because here's the thing. We talked about this a little bit. If you end up with a really clean answer, what does that mean you probably could do in the first place? Factor, exactly. You're going to use completing the square when you can't factor nicely, and therefore should get kind of, like, this right here is about as clean as it should be.
Yeah. What did you get?
That sounds like math. It's amazing how the tone changes. The tone changes. It's like my mind just runs these subroutines like, that's not math. You know this punk right here? Excellent. What did you do for break, Zoya? How was Jamaica?
It was fun, but I went for like a funeral.
Oh, hence the. I understand. It's weird how things work out like that, huh?
I got a vacation.
Yeah. What'd you do for break, Connor?
Went to the Church with some of my new friends. Very nice.
You had it
A
right.
bunch of net skateboards.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That sounds really fun.
Yeah. What about you?
I was in Israel for the whole time.
Really?
Good time. Went around Israel and the West Bank, visited schools, coached, saw paper folding, saw math classes.
Are you coaching for this spring?
I am not coaching
Not
for this
spring because you don't want to.
Oh no, in an infinite amount of time type world, I would absolutely.
Yeah.
But even though coaching here is very, very high, my things I would like to do, there are many other things that, as you grow up, take precedent.
Prioritize. Yeah. Is it more like known in Israel or here? Do you think?
Oh, here, absolutely. It's nowhere, like literally Western Massachusetts is the highest concentration of all the world. But it's growing very quickly in Israel. Ultimate, like players, the big one, northeast, northwest of the United States, like
Maryland. Is that not
Maryland has a bunch. No, Maryland, it's the eastern corridor. Like Maryland North is a really, really high concentration. Minneapolis has a really big ultimate scene. Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, huge. United States, by far the biggest.
Maplewood, New Jersey.
Where the first team was playing. Yep.
Is that their game?
Okay, kids, which one do you want to do? Let's do a vote here. We have a vote for 3. We have a vote for 5. 3? How do we do 3 then 5?
I feel it.
Okay, Nick, can you read me 3?
2x squared minus.
Hold on a sec. 2x squared what?
2x squared minus 4x
Yep.
minus 5.
That's fine.
Okay, kids, everybody stand up. Stand up. Okay. Position yourself so you can see the board. Okay, so what's that first thing we have to do? What? Divide by 2. We want that leading coefficient to be 1. So we end up with this. Now what do we add to both sides? Yeah, we add the 5 over 2 to both sides. And now we have to add something to both sides to create a perfect square. What's our b value? What's that number that's in front of x? 2. Negative 2. Negative 2. When you square it, it becomes positive. It doesn't really change anything, but negative 2 divided by 2 is negative Negative 1 squared is. So you're adding what to both sides? You're just adding 1 to both sides. Clean it up a little bit first, maybe? Well, you can just factor this straight off. What does that factor into? X minus 1 squared equals, what, 7 over 2? What do you do to both sides? And what do you have to have in front of that square root? Is there any way to simplify the square root of 7 over 2? And in any helpful way? Can you mess around with it and make it look different?
7 over 2.
Yeah, you could do square root of 7 over the square root of 2. You could rationalize this. Do you need to in this case? No. So what are you going to write your final answer as? X equals 1 plus or minus the square root of?
7 over 2.
Done. That's all. That would be great. Okay, you can sit down. 5 here. We had a bid for 5. X squared plus... Hey, leading coefficient is what? 1. 1 was already moved over to the other side. So at this point, we just need to figure out what we add to both sides, correct? What we add to both sides? What's our b value? 5. No, our b value is 5. I'm saying that because the general form for a quadratic, you remember this? ax squared plus bx plus c. When I say what's the b value, that's the coefficient of x. So what's the b value? 5. You're going to do this a lot, b over 2 squared. So what are we adding to both sides? Plus 5 over 2 squared equals 1 plus? Exactly. So what does this factor into? I'm not multiplying it out because it's easier to see what it factors into. It's x plus 5 over 2 squared. Whatever this number is goes right there. Equals, and what do you have to do on the other side? What am I going to have to do at this point? Yeah, do it out. So what's that going to be? 29 over 4? Right? Yeah, 29. So now we have, what do we do to both sides now? We want to isolate x, so we need to get rid of the square root. So we have x plus 5 over 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of? Can we nicely simplify the square root of 29 over 4 a little bit? Yeah, what's the square root of 29? I don't know. What's the square root of 4? 2. So what do you end up with? X is equal to negative 5 over 2 plus or minus the square root of?
29 over 2.
Correct. So this would be your final answer. Yep, I'll go back up. That would be your final answer right there. Take a look and let me know if... And then you're going to have x squared plus 6x plus what? 9 equals negative 32 plus 9. So you're going to have x plus 3 squared is equal to negative what? 3. Ah, but you take the square. Are you allowed to do that?
No.
Sure. No, you can. You can, but what kind of answer do you get? Oh, yeah.
I think number 4 was 2. Subtract the 10. And then
But look what you add on number 4. What's half of 8?
4.
4 squared is?
16.
You add 16 to both sides. It goes from negative 10 to 6. To both sides. So I was like, oh, it balances out. So on this one, though, that's why I came up with this one. What do you end up with? X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of? You don't usually write the square root of negative 23. What do you write instead?
23.
Plus or minus, what do you put in front? I root. This is an imaginary, irrational number. And now your life is complete because you've done a problem that has an answer that has 2 imaginary irrational answers.